Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for being here. And let's start with Mangalacharan. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Om. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanajanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yudapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savadu Purathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kirpa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, Hare Krishna, Mataji. So good to have you all. And we are doing 18 chapters in 18 sessions series. So we have done so far 7, and today is the 8th. So we will continue. So where we left before, we will continue from there. We said chapter 6 is on Ashtanga Yoga. Chapter 6 is the last bit of first 6 chapter, which comes in Karma Yoga, ends in Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, where at the end of chapter 6, Krishna says, the best yogi is the one who serves and thinks of Krishna. And then chapter 7 explains the knowledge about absolute knowledge about Krishna, that how to attain such constant remembrance. So chapter 6 says we should always think about Krishna. Chapter 7 says how can we do it? And now chapter 8 explains if we will able to do it, what we will achieve. And it says the title of chapter 8 is Attaining the Supreme, Attaining Krishna. So if we will able to remember Krishna, and then especially if we remember Krishna right at the end of the time we leave our body, then we will think that what Krishna is saying, where we will go. And that's what we would like to discuss it today, right? So going forward, what we say, Hare Krishna, about no Maya and yes to Krishna. Okay, Navneet is asking what is the poem about no to Maya and yes to Krishna. Yes, there's a nice poem written. I will share the link, and it says, if we say, now it's up to us the way we look at it, yes to Krishna, no to Maya, which means that if we will say yes to Krishna, which means if we are Krishna conscious all the time, we are not in Maya. So if we say yes to Krishna, automatically we will say no to Maya. Or some people say, only when we will able to say no to Maya, then only we will able to say yes to Krishna. What we cannot have is that we are watching the movie and we are chanting at the same time as well. If you want to chant, chant separately and watch the movie separately. So at the time we are focusing on Krishna, we should not dwell ourselves in Maya. We want to keep them separate. But yes, yeah, there is a poem. I will share the link with you. It has been explained very nicely. So that's how we get from chapter 6 to chapter 7, chapter 7 to chapter 8 now. Now, chapter 8, at the beginning of chapter 8, Arjun asked the questions. Arjun asked 8 questions. So, chapter 8 and 8 questions in the beginning. In the very beginning, Arjun asks these 8 questions. And these are the questions we should ask. Now, there are many other questions people ask. They all are material. Now, spiritually, when we think, these are the questions we should think about, right? And what will happen from that? We will understand our true identity, and we will understand where we came from, where we will go, and while we are here, what do we need to do? If you think about it, it covers past, present, and future. Where we came from, where we are, what do we need to do, and where we will go, right? And there are many stories in this because each slide could be a story associated with it. Hopefully we will know most of those stories. Otherwise, maybe very briefly I will mention and then we will move on. So what we are going to cover in chapter 8, Lord Krishna is going to answer those 8 questions, right? And then we will see at the time of death. Now somebody said, I remember when I was very young, then I was introduced to someone who was much older than me. And then he asked me, then he must have sensed some kind of spiritual urgency in me. And he asked me that, what's one truth? I said, well, what's ultimate truth? And I didn't get what he meant. And then he said, death. And that stayed with me all the time. Death is one of those things. Doesn't matter how much someone loves us or how much we love someone. At the time of death, the departure happened. Anyone could promise anything and that thing might not happen. But death is the only thing which we are sure that it will happen, right? It's one of those things, it will never ever cheat us. Somebody has promised and it will happen, and that's only death. At the time of death, what we should think about, and if we are not thinking that, if we are thinking something else, what will happen then? So these are the questions Arjun is asking here. And then if we are in pure devotional service, and then if we leave our body, what happens? And then we did the seminar when we did Bhagavad Gītā in Hindi. We did Goloka chart. We did material world and spiritual world. And we will do that again. And we are going to see that very briefly in this because the comparison of both are given here. And then if we do devotional service, then how devotional service is better than everything else we have discussed. Like what we have, different parts we have discussed. Karmakand, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Ashtang Yoga, Dhyan Yoga. Compared to that, Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, is definitely better. So that's how we could section in chapter 8. So there could be 6 of them. As per the verses, Krishna is going to answer Arjun's question. Then if we remember Krishna, what will happen? And how can we go back to Godhead? How can we go back to Krishna? How can we go back to a spiritual world where we were? And then pure devotional service is the answer. Then we will dwell a bit there. Then comparing, because where we are, material world, where do we want to go to spiritual world? What's the difference between two? We have seen briefly, but we will see again briefly. And then again, how the pure devotional service is better than everything else we have done it. So if we see here in this, ask, but the right question. That's another format, the kind of questions we should ask. Then art of living is all about art of leaving. So that's art of living, art of death. And that reminds me, tomorrow, UK time, I think it's 3:30, we are going to have a seminar for 1 hour, or we could have a bit more if question and answers after that. Please attend that. There is a very good book written by a very nice devotee who is very learned in all the Shastras and ISKCON in Krishna consciousness. He has written a book and he's going to do a seminar on his book. That's tomorrow, Sunday, 6th December, 3:30 p.m. UK time. And I have shared the link. I will share the link again in the group, and how we should live the life and how we should leave the body. That's all been discussed there as well. Love makes remembrance. So how should we remember Krishna? Not out of fear, but out of love, out of prema. And that's what it is. And then it says, return to unreturnable. Now, Krishna says, somebody who comes back to me never comes down. And that's another thing we should always think about it. Where do we want to do? Where we want to go and what do we want to do? Now, again, the question should be asked, but what kind of questions? The right kind of questions. Better than the best. Now, what do we think is the best? Krishna is saying there's something else which is even better than that, right? And again, a different representation. The very first thing, perfect questions, and then Krishna's perfect answers. Then the final examination, as we discussed, at the time of death. It says, doesn't matter. Somebody said that doesn't matter how good or bad you are. Most of the people, they don't lie at the time of death, right? So there is another meditation where people spend time with the dying people. So people are dying, and some people, they will go and they will stay next to them, even though they don't know the people. But the realization you get from the dying person, they are the perfect realization of the whole life, because person will never lie. And that has been considered as the final examination. We can pretend, we can lie to each other, and we do. We lie to each other all the time. How are we doing? How are you doing? Oh, I'm good. We know, we don't share what we really feel. But at the time of final examination, at the time of death, there's no cheating there. It's all clear, all evident. How to remember Krishna? Krishna has given the hints before. Krishna is going to elaborate again. And then, as I said, difference between material world and spiritual are very important and very interesting. Today we will just see the glimpse of it, but later we will see, well, when we will do Goloka chart, after we will finish the series in New Year. Beautiful, the way it has been described. Very nice. And then it says the pure bhakti, devotion service is the best. There is no other way of doing it. That is the best. Right. So what are the questions? Let's get into that. Okay, 11 past 10. Any questions so far? I'm just going to go into full view. Any questions so far? What we have discussed? Okay, if not, then here we are. I can still see if you're going to raise virtual hand. I can still see if you're going to say something in chat. So that's good. Rebo. All right, so where we are now, the very first question here in chapter 8, the very first question Arjun has asked, what is Brahman? And now a lot of devotees, and I'm looking for someone here who is not here today. And most of the time in Hinduism, if we see, we have Vedas, then we have Upanishads. All the Upanishads, they talk about Brahman. And that's why most of the people, they understand the top philosophical question has been asked in Brahman. It says, Artho Jigyasa. Like, if you are curiosity to know yourself, you will find the answer as Brahman. Now, this Brahman is different than Brahma. And Mataji asked the question very nicely last time, that it's Brahman, not Brahma. Brahma is a man, right? We say Lord Brahma, but Lord Brahma is also material like me and like you. So some of us might be more healthy. Some of us might have better eyesight, better ear, audible senses. So Brahmaji is very similar. Like the people who live in heaven, they are also material, but they are a bit better than us. Similarly, Brahmaji is a bit better than us, or could be a lot better than us, right? But still, Brahmaji is material. What does material means? Material means that there was a starting point and there was an ending point. There are many other differences, but let's keep that one sentence. Something or somebody who has a starting point and ending point, that could be considered a material. That's why we say this body is material. So if I was born at my date of birth, before that, this body didn't exist. And at the time of death, this body will go away, right? So that's the end and well, starting and ending of this body. But the soul inside the body is spiritual, like Krishna explained in chapter 2, that it's eternal, nothing can happen to it. And that's why there is no need for us to worry. The only worry we have is because we get attached to this body. For example, if I get attached to my attire, if I will get attached to my specs, we don't need to attach. We do need to take good care of it, but we don't need to get attached to it. We do need to realize all the time it's going to end. And because it's going to end, we don't need to be perplexed. We don't need to be scared. But we need to be very, very detached and enjoy the time we have it. And we will engage ourselves in service. First question, what is Brahman? Now it says Brahman is the indestructible living entity. So are we Brahman? Yes, we are Brahman because we are a living entity. We are Brahman. We all are Brahman. And this is the fundamental concept which has been explained. All the living entity are Brahman. This is what Krishna explains there. Then what is, now there are many Sanskrit words which are going to come. And I have another slide where instead of Sanskrit, English equivalents are given. But we say, what is Adhyatma? So we could say Adhyatma could be spiritual, right? So it says, is the living entity's nature that accompany the jiva and govern the body, which means, if you remember, we heard, did we? Or we are going to do it. We are going to do, there is a word called Kshetragya. And that word is that this is a body, but then there is an environment around us. There is a nature of this body, the way this body is going to interact with the nature, like how, in which world we are going to be, the atmosphere around us, right? That has been explained. The nature of the body and the environment around us. Then what is karma? And we do any actions we do expecting something back, that's all called karma. So whatever we do since birth till end is all karma, until and unless we are doing something without expecting anything back. So I will go, I will help someone. I'm not expecting anything back. I'm doing it as my duty. And the classic typical example of mother feeding the baby. When mother feeding the baby, mother is not expecting anything back. If mother is expecting anything back, that's bad. That's adulterate motherhood, which means that mother might be expecting, oh, let's grow this baby, so in the future this baby is going to help me, right? But most of the time, mother is just feeding out of sheer love. Then what is Adi Bhuta? That's material manifestation. What does that mean? That we are Brahman, which is spiritual, but then everything around us, as I said, the environment around us is material. Everything is material. Why? Because there was a starting point and there will be an ending point. So that's what we call Adi Bhuta. This body could also be considered as the Adi Bhuta because body also originated and going to go. Then it says Adi Deva. Now Deva, as you understand, is usually for demigods. So it says, he who presides over all the demigods and their planet is called Adi Deva, universal form. So Adi Deva could be there. Now, demigods are there, but all the demigods are controlled by Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, as been explained in our scriptures, right? Indra, Brahmaji, Varuna, Agni Dev, they all have their Puranas. And in all those Puranas, they pray to Krishna. They don't pray to anyone else. They pray to Krishna. Why and how? And they explain it. And that's the reason we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means he's a personality, right? He's not just the attribute form. Okay. So Kana has asked the question, what actually means the word Adi? Now, Adi usually means, like we say, Adi Purush, the first foremost. So that's usually how it means. The very first one means Adi. But in this respect, it could be spiritual as well. But Adhyatma. So it's the very first manifestation of the spiritual sense. So Adi usually means first. And then it says Adi Yagya, which a yagya, as we understand, is a sacrifice. And most of the time, firing sacrifice, we know. At the time of, especially in India, when people get married, go round and round, and then that's called fire sacrifice. But when we do the actions in the world, we do the karma. These karmas are also considered as the sacrifices. We do the sacrifices. This morning, somebody said that when we take the name of the Lord, then those words are like the things we put in the fire sacrifice. And when we hear from our ears are like Havan Kund. So words are like those where we put ghee, we put dry fruits, we put wood in the fire, in the Yajna Kund. And ears are the Yajna Kund. So our words are going into our ears when we are chanting. So when we are simply chanting, we are doing Yajna. And that's another analogy, the way we understand. And then it says, seventh question, seventh we have Adi Yajna. Okay, there is a spelling. Oh, how is Adi Yajna? So the sixth is who, the seventh is how. Adi Yajna known in the body. So how do we know it? And this is what we're talking about Krishna. That we do all the sacrifices. Krishna has said it, that all the sacrifices are done for Vishnu. Right? Vishnu and Krishna are similar. There is a very subtle difference, but for our discussion, we can keep Krishna and Vishnu same. So all the yajnas, the owner of all the yajnas, supposed to be Vishnu as per our scriptures, and that's Krishna. So who is the Lord of sacrifice? Krishna. And how that Lord of sacrifice is there in our body, and we understand that as the super soul. Now, how do we say there is a soul inside the body and there is a super soul inside the body? If we gradually read Bhagavad Gītā, that's how we understand. Chapter 2 explained very nicely what we say. Atma is the soul, Param Atma, super soul. So that's why it explains in section 7, question 7 of this section. And the last one, how to know Krishna at the time of death. Now, all the answers are straightforward, but rest of the discussion will go on the 8th question, because the first 7 are just for the understanding. 8th is to implement. How could we do this, right? And then it says, this is the main subject discussed in the rest of this chapter. So any question, and these things, they might be a bit confusing. Let me just share another slide on it. Any questions so far what we have discussed?
Prabhuji,
Please, Mataji.
yes, you said that all the karmas that we perform are actually yagnas. Does it include everything or only those that we do for please Krishna?
Actually, all the karmas are considered as yajnas, but when we do the yajnas, sometimes we put pure things, sometimes we put impure things.
Mhm.
So that's like our karmas. So whatever we hear could be the words going into the Havan Kund. Now it's up to us. What do we say? What do we put in the Havan Kund? Right? So
Okay.
very nice question. Very, very nice. Mataji. Very good. So this is another slide where we can see all these. And let me just take this further. If there is any other question, please let me know. It's very important to ask question. There should be curiosity. Oops, I think yeah. If you see, these are the 8 questions being asked, and they are in 2 separate sections. Brahman, it's Brahman. And Brahman is the nature, the true nature of the living entity. So we are actually Brahman. Aham Brahman. It's been said in Upanishad number of times. What is the self, Adhyatma, then super soul, the kind of activities we should do, material manifestation, the things around us. Right? Krishna has already said that all these material manifestation, material mode of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, these things, they all are under me, but you are under the influence of them. And how can we go out? We can only go out if we can control our mind. Now it's very hard to control the mind. Then what do? We engage the mind. So if we try to understand very logically, very strategically, straightforward. But again, if you don't go logically, then it could be confusing. And that's why it's so important to discuss. What are demigods? We discussed the demigods. They are also the servants of Krishna. If you see, all the demigods, or each of the demigod, you will think they have a specific power, like Vayu Dev, wind, Pavan Dev, wind, Varun Dev, water, Agni Dev, fire. And if you go for, and then there is a team leader, which is Indra. If you go through, now this is like we have the department in university or a school, mathematics, teacher, science teacher. Then we have, there could be a separate bio, physics, chemistry teacher. They have their own, but then there is a principal. So that's how we understand that Krishna is principal who has given all these powers to them. And that's why when we say Varun, or let's say Agni Dev, there could be different Agni Devs, and there are different Agni Devs. If we see the scriptures, Padma Purana given, there are 14 different types of Agni Devs, right? So, and these are called placeholders, which means maybe in future I can become Agni Dev, or somebody else could become Agni Dev. These are called placeholders. Like in this school, there's a post of maths teacher. Somebody else could become maths teacher, whoever is eligible. So all these demigods, they are called demigods because they are much, much elevated than us. They are realized souls. But still, we have to realize they are material. Sooner or later, they are also going to go away. Heaven is not permanent. And Brahmaji is even above heaven. But still, Brahmaji also changed. Brahmaji is also a placeholder. So we can also become Brahma if we want. But we don't want to become Brahma because we understand that's also in material world. Okay. And then Lord of sacrifice. So all these demigods, they do the sacrifice. We do the sacrifice. If demigods, they do the sacrifice for whom? For Krishna. And how that Krishna lives in our body. That Krishna lives in our body in the form of super soul. And how to remember? And we will discuss that further. Okay. So maybe how about, if this is a good time, we do a quick poll. Quiz, yes. So I'm not sure if I have covered everything what I'm going to ask in the poll, but it's there on the screen
for everybody to answer.
Yeah, and this is Shivani speaking with me.
Yeah.
So, Hare Krishna. Okay. Now, most of you have answered. That's an interesting. The very first question I always tend to ask that what is the name of the chapter we are doing? That should be the topmost. And it's interesting. Sometimes we get confused. And again, it's easy to get confused because the chapters are very similar. Like last week, what we had, and this week, what we had. And most of you have answered, and we have to keep moving. But if I will just go back, and I will show attaining the supreme. Okay, so maybe last few seconds, and let's end the poll now. Hare Krishna. Okay, so very quickly, the name of the chapter is Attaining the Supreme. And why Arjuna addresses Krishna as Purushottam? Why? The second answer is the most answer. There's only one person who has said all of the above. But it says because Arjuna knew that Krishna is the supreme authority, able to give definite answers to the questions. That is the answer. Brahman refers to living entity. Now, yes, that's also right. One person has said supreme personality of Godhead. Brahman, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna has said it before. Krishna will say in chapter 15 as well, we are parts and parcel of Krishna, which means if Krishna is the ocean, we are one drop out of it. So we are. So that's why people say, oh, Krishna lives in our body. Yes, Krishna is in our body in the form of Brahman, in the form of super soul. So, but Brahman refers to living entity. So we are Brahman. And quitting one's body at the time of death, yes, we transfer back. Everybody got that right. And then we got number 5. What affects one at the moment of death? Thoughts and actions. Very nice. Both of them are right. Both A and B. And then the last one, what instruction Krishna gives to Arjun for fixing his mind on? Always think of Krishna and carry out the prescribed duty. Both A and B. That's right. So thank you so much. Let's cancel that. Okay, so if we go back here, now what we have been discussing, and if we continue with this is what we say the final examination. Antakale cha mamevam smarn muktava kalevaram. So this is Antakale, what Krishna is saying, and as we can see in the picture right at the time, and we might remember the example of, anybody remembers the example, a very famous example in this case, the example of there was a person dying and he just called his son Narayan because he was very attached to his son Narayan. And then instead of Yamdut were there. If you see in the picture on the right hand side, Yamduts are there. But as soon as he said Narayan and he left his body, because he said Narayan, then Vishnudut came. And on the left hand side, you can see Vishnudut. And the dialogue between Yamdut and Vishnudut, it's magnificent. It's there in Bhagavad Gītā. Sorry, in Bhagavatam. And the way that, and he's there. His name is Ajamil. Ajamil is there. He's listening the conversation between these two. He gets the time, he gets the opportunity, he goes back. And then what he does, then he remembers. Thank you, Navneet. Yes, you're right. He was Ajamiyu. So right at the time of the death, the last thoughts we have. And we will see many examples. This is another example. It says, this is the example of Bharat Maharaj. Whatever the state of being one remembers when he quits his body or son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And Bharat Maharaj Bharat was the classic example. He left his own kingdom and he went to the jungle to do the meditation. Why? Because he was taking the marg of a sannyasi, a yogi, and he did a very, very severe penance, meditation. But he got attached to a baby deer, right? And then that deer was there, deer was growing up. Right at the time of death, he was not thinking about his kingdom. He was not thinking about his children, his wives. He was thinking about that deer. Oh, what will happen to that deer when I will die? What happens? Like what Krishna says here, what happened? Next birth, he became the deer. He became the deer. But still he remembered, and then after that, when he left his body as the deer, he became what we call Jad Bharat. And then he got liberated and he went back to Krishna. So these examples are there in the Shastras, which aligns with what it says in Bhagavad Gītā. So somebody might say, well, it's hard. I don't understand. Bhagavad Gītā just says these things. No, the examples are there. And these examples like Maharaj Ambrish, what does this say? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anu smara yuddhasya. So what Krishna is saying? Remembrance. Never mind, Krishna is not asking us to leave everything and go away in the jungle or forest. Like what Jad Bharat or Maharaj Bharat had to do it. Like Amrish Maharaj. Amrish Maharaj was there as a king. He had everything. But when Durvasa Muni came, he was indulged in the devotional service, and then he was proven to be the better devotee than Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is it says Vishnu. Vishnu's best devotee is Yatha Shambhu. So Shivji is the best devotee, topmost devotee. But Maharaj Parikshit was even above him just because of his devotional service. And he was a king. So it's not what we do, it's what we remember. So he was the king, but he was also the servant of Krishna, and he was serving Krishna. And again, this example is there. And then what it says, this is a classic example, deep in meditation, how we should do it. Now, if you see in this example, Maharaj Parikshit was a king, he had everything, and he was thinking of Krishna, right? In this example, this is Maharaj Parikshit, a little baby, 5 years, 6 years later, 7 and 8 years. And if you see the example, his father, Hiranyakashipu, wanted him to die. And he tried everything, snakes, falling from the cliff, rampants by elephants, right at the end on the fire. But he was thinking about Krishna. That's it. And that's what Krishna is saying. We just need to think about Krishna. The live examples are there. And then deep in love. Now, if you see these kids, what do we? For one who has always remembers me without deviation, I'm easy to obtain. Again, a very nice quote when Srila Prabhupadaji's disciple said, Prabhupadaji, you said that devotion is easy. Devotion is simple, but this is so hard. Prabhupadaji said, it's very simple. It's very simple. But for you, it's very complex to be simple. So it's not the devotion which is complex. Devotion is simple, but our problem is that we are not simple because we lie to ourselves. We don't need to lie to others. We lie to ourselves. The very first thing is we need to be truthful with ourselves. And that's what Krishna is saying. Ananya Chaita Satam. Yo Mam Smriti. Again and again. Remembrance. What do we do? So I'm an engineer. I go and I work as engineer. I just need to work as engineer, but I need to remember whatever I'm doing in love of Krishna. When I get the money, I'm not going to get the money and I'm going to plan that how I'm going to enjoy that money. I will say, thank you, Krishna. You have given me that ability that I can go back in the society and work as the engineer or as the doctor or as the nurse. Right? So that's the thought we need to have. And remember, doesn't matter at the time of the death, if we leave, we go back to Krishna or not. But if you have that humbleness, how happy you will be. So somebody said to me that in bhakti, when will you get peace? I will say in bhakti, you will get peace now. It's not that the destination is joyful. The journey is the joyful as well. Journey is where we are enjoying. And if you see most of the devotees, like somebody said yesterday, that I have never seen one devotee who has committed suicide. And there are many kind of devotees, rich, poor. Many devotees got affected by COVID. But you will never see any devotee who has gone into, well, until unless a devotee will leave the devotional service. Then the person will not be considered as devotee because the person is not doing devotional service. But as long as the devotee is constantly engaged in devotional service, the person is not going to get affected. Any question on that, please? Okay. Then Krishna promises, if we remember, what will happen? In chapter 6, Krishna says, remember me and do action as per the remembrance. And in chapter 7, Krishna says, that's the only thing you need to do. chapter 8, Krishna says how to do it and various examples being given. Parikshit Maharaj and Maharaj Amrish. And then we saw the example of Ajamil as well, that if you remember at the time of that, what will happen. And then Krishna says again, Mam upette punarjanma dukhalya. So this earth is considered as dukhalya. Now we say, the alya is a place and dukh is sorrowness. So this place, we cannot get anything else. It's all pain. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world again, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So it doesn't matter. Even if we will go to heaven, we become demigod, we will fall down. And Indra has fallen down number of times. Even if we will become Brahma, we can fall down. Brahma ji has committed many sins. If you haven't heard, Brahm Samhita is there, the scripture which Brahma ji has compiled together. And in that, he's praying to Krishna, he's glorifying Krishna, not asking for anything, just doing the prayers, like remembering the past times. Okay, if there is any question on what we have discussed so far, please. Okay, feel free to interrupt me, to stop me anytime. Otherwise, this is the next section. So remember, we are thinking about how to think about Krishna. Whatever we do, we need to keep Krishna in mind, and we can engage. If you have something in your mind and you think, I cannot think about Krishna while doing this, please ask me. And let's discuss if we can. Whether when we are drinking water, can we think about Krishna? And then again, coming chapters, we will see more. Chapter 14, chapter 16, Krishna has given so many details. The only thing is that we don't read the details in Bhagavad Gītā. Now, what do we see at the moment on the screen? This is what we call Goloka chart. And this is magnificent. Goloka chart. And we will discuss each part of it once we will finish our 18 chapters, 18 sessions series. Then we will go and we will discuss in detail. Very briefly, I will mention that where we are, it says here, you might not be able to see, it says you are here. And then in the middle, where it says Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, right on the top of it, it says Bhuloka, which is Earth planet. So this is our planet Earth. This is Brahmaji on the top, and this is Vishnu Bhagwan. This Vishnu Bhagwan, there are 3 types of Vishnu Bhagwan. We will not go into detail, but this Vishnu Bhagwan is called Garbhodakshay Vishnu, because from his garb, from his tummy, from his navel, a lotus comes out, and on the top of that lotus, well, on top of that stem, a lotus is there. On that lotus, Brahmaji is sitting. And from that Brahmaji, everything else starts. But everything we can see here is material. Which means when this bubble will go down, this is actually a bubble. When this bubble will go down, everyone will finish, including Brahmaji. It says, we remember Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha. So Bhulok is earth, Bhuva is another lok, and then Swa is for Swarg. That's Gayatri Mantra. And then on top we have Mahaloka, Janaloka, Taploka, Satyaloka, which is Lord Brahma's place. And then similarly, so this is called heavenly planets because they are on top of us. They are called heavenly planets. If you go down, they are called lower planets. Why? Attal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patal is very famous. So we have heard of Patal, but Patal is the bottom, but there are many more on top of it. Okay, Shivani is next to me and she got a question. Yes, please.
So my question is that, you know, when you said that when the bubble will finish, you said that the Brahma will finish. Does that mean like, but then there are there hundreds of bubbles, or are there just one bubble?
There are numerous bubbles. There are many, many, many bubbles.
Yeah, but then like
only one bubble will finish. It doesn't matter. Other bubbles are still there. So where we are, we will finish, but others are. When we say we will finish, our bodies will finish, our soul will go back. And where it will go back, we will discuss that in Golokacha. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where Krishna says this is a permanent residence. Krishna said in the previous verse as well, you will reach to a place which is a permanent and you will not come back here, which is temporary. And this is also Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avrin Nito Arjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. Yes, Mataji, please.
Yes, two questions. One is, it's a practice, requires a lot of practice trying to remember Krishna all the time in our atmosphere. Yes, which is I think is a fact, but we have to keep trying to think about it and remember it. That is my point of view. Second, is please tell me the name of the serpent on which the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is lying.
Sheshnag.
Is it Sheshnag?
Sheshnag,
I read somewhere that it is Vasuki, but I was not sure, hence I'm asking.
No, this is not Vasuki, this is Sheshnag.
Sheshnag, yeah.
Yes, because
Vasuki was something that in the universal form that Arjun is saying.
Yes.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah, we will see that as well. Vasuki we will see in chapter 16. Right.
Okay.
Yes. So Mataji said it very nicely. So what I'm saying is that it's possible. What Krishna is saying, it's possible, but Krishna has never said that it's easy. However, if you will make our life easy, then it will be easy. For example, people say, oh, you don't have TV in your house. How do you spend time? What do you do in the evenings? What do kids do when they have free time? But that's people's thinking because their life is associated with TV. If we don't have a TV because we have many other things. Now, we never feel the need of TV. But maybe sometimes we will. But that's the lifestyle we have chosen. And we are quite happy in that lifestyle. So this is what it is. We just need to, it's not that it's not possible. But yes, considering what we already are, it's hard. Yes, it's hard. Definitely. It's not the easy and straightforward thing to do, for sure. But what we are saying here is that it's possible. We can do it. Now, what do we see here? This is material world and spiritual world.
Is it Goloka chart?
This is Goloka chart. Yes. So on the top, we see, so in the middle, we see Brahm Jyoti. Brahm Jyoti is in the transition. Everything above it is spiritual world, which never go down, which means everything there stays as it is. It has always been like that. It will always stay like that. But everything underneath it is called material world, and that goes down, which means it comes up, it becomes, it goes like bubbles.
Does that mean that Vishnu is in the material world?
Yes, that's right. Well, Vishnuji is there as well in the spiritual world, but Vishnu comes down here. So now what do we see in this? This is the last bit where Krishna says that highest, the topmost, we can do yajna. When we do yajna, what do we get? Or what do we expect to get? We pray something. Like some people will do for big kingdom, some people will do for the sun, some people will do for a lot of material, right? And if you see this kid, he's doing Gayatri Mantra, right? If you see that yogi is going to get some siddhis. But what Krishna is saying, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft. Bereft is the absence. That it's not that if we will become devotees, we will not get what these people will get after doing all that. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gītā, I give you the knowledge. And we have seen it. We have seen in the example of Ravana's brother, Kumbhkarna. Kumbhkarna wanted to have Indra Loka. But what happened? Saraswati ji came on his tongue and made instead of Indralok as Nidralok. And that's why Nidra is sleeping. And that's why he used to sleep for that long. So what Krishna says, I am the giver. I give you everything. So now whether we do all these things and pray to the demigods and try to get things, or we just pray to Krishna and Krishna will just give these things anyways. And how can we understand? We can understand this In the family, if my children, they're going to request me something, I will give them. I will ask them to do something, but I will give them. But even if they will not ask and they will just do what they are supposed to do, like if they're students, they are supposed to study, whatever they need, as a father, I will give them anyways. Whether it's the clothing, whether it's the sportswear, whether it's the books for their studies, whether it's a good school, we will as a parents try to give them anyways. And Krishna is the father of everyone. So if we think about it, we don't even need to ask for it. First of all, we need to realize what we have is already more than what we deserve, right? And if we keep that, we are always humble. If you think about it, we will always be humble. We will never ever get what we call false ego in our life. And that's what Krishna is saying, that results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charities, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. So all those things people get from there. If somebody is just doing devotional service, we get it. Now, what is devotional service? Well, we are doing the middle part of Bhagavad Gita now, which is Bhakti Yoga. So we did the 7, which is knowledge about absolute. Now Krishna is saying that chapter 8 is attaining the supreme. Next week we will see chapter 9. Chapter 9 is most confidential knowledge, and we will see what Krishna has to say there. But this is what Krishna is trying to say to us, that we should always think of Krishna. Shivani, got another question. Yes, please.
Oh wait, if you go on the other slide, the slide before, why does it say highest returns?
Highest returns. This says, like, when you invest somewhere, you get some return, right? When you do some work, you get something back. But what Krishna is saying, devotional service, whatever you invest in devotional service, you get the highest returns. Like, it's the best to invest in devotional service.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. So it's not a karma kanda. When, if you see in this, these brahmacharis or sannyasis, this grahast on the right hand side, they are just chanting, they are singing. They are not expecting anything back. They are just because of the love of Krishna, they are taking the name of Krishna. And they're happy and they're saying, thank you, Krishna, you have given me so much.
Wait, but does that mean that these 3 people are the guys who are chanting, but the other 3 people in the bubble are doing wrong because they're expecting something?
They are not doing wrong, but we can say they are doing incomplete. They are doing material things. So what they are doing, they would like to get something material out of it. They are doing things spiritually, but they want something materially.
Yeah, like he's praying.
Yes, he wants. Well, yeah, if you ask a yogi why the yogi is doing yoga, when yogi most of the time say, "Oh, I'm trying to get this," they get siddhis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they are just like praying, so Krishna can come down and say,
that's right. That's right. Yes. So this is what we have covered today. It's a 28 verses short compared to many others. It says the very first thing Arjuna asked question 8, Krishna gave all those 8 answers. Now, some of the words, as we saw, there are three things we get. There are 3 different types of miseries we get. Adi, Bhuta. Bhuta could be body. Adi, Devik. Adi, Devik is from demigods, right? And then we have Adhyatmik. Adhyatmik, we could say, related to mind or spiritual nature. So these kind of miseries, we get it. But all these 3 kinds of miseries are material. If we consider ourselves as Brahman, that we are spiritual, then we will not get affected. Our body can get affected. Our body can get pain, but we will not lament, which means we will not suffer. Our body might suffer and we will feel pain, but we will not suffer, right? If you see the distinction between these 2, devotees understand this perfectly. It's the body which got the issues. So a lot of devotees, sometimes they get the COVID or they get the cancer. The body is in pain, but they are happy. Why? Because they know this is for example, if I get the t-shirt, if my t-shirt would get ruptured, I will get a big stitch there. Ow. I can say, oh, well, there is a stitch. I can't do anything with it. There is, right? If I get a scar on my face, I will say, the scar is there, I can't do anything. But I know I'm not this scar, I'm not this body is going to go away. If we remember that, and we will keep ourselves busy in Krishna's service and the service of devotees, we will always be happy. Yes, Shivani. Shivani, got another question? No? Okay. All right. So, any questions so far? We still have few more seconds. Okay. Otherwise, we can do the second poll. Right? Let's try to get the second poll, which is coming now. All right, as you would see, just to wrap up, I've taken the key verses. So there might be few, like the first one, where it mentions about Om. And a good friend of mine, I'm glad Avinash is there. He loves Om. And it says, it's a symbol, Om is identical with Brahman. And the answer to the first one is impersonalists. Those people who don't consider that Krishna is a person, they think that Krishna is the force, Shakti, Nirgur.
I don't understand the question 4.
Question 4.
Bhakti Yoga
Yes, Mataji.
engaged in how many different ways?
Bhakti Yoga. Okay. Let's see. So, question 4. Bhakti Yoga is engaged in how many different ways? Right. Okay. So, even though I didn't give you the number, but it says now, okay. If we see the picture we have, the picture I'm sharing, what that picture is trying to say, that we live our life with the senses. And if you want to do devotional service, if we engage, remember, so rather than giving the name, I'm trying to give you the answer. Well, rather than giving you the answer, I'm trying to give you the philosophy behind it. So what we say, that Krishna says, think of me. So we need to think of Krishna. But who thinks? We say mind thinks. Mind is there who thinks. Now, what does mind do? Mind engages the senses either in spiritual practices or material practices. So mind feeds on the senses. So if we control those 5 senses we have, then we can do devotional service, which means we can see from eyes, we can smell from nose, we can hear from ears, we can touch Krishna's deities or the paraphernalia, everything which goes along, or we can eat Krishna Prasad. So the answer is 5. And the reason is because Bhakti Yoga could be done through our 5 senses. Okay. And while few are still doing it, I thought to share this slide.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hari Bol. Please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I was a bit confused with the 4th question.
Yes.
Because I started thinking in direction of the Navda Bhakti. I
My
started
thoughts.
about Padu Sevanam and
Yes.
Shravanam and all those things.
Yes. Yes, yeah, no, very, very well you reminded, Prabhuji. That's also there. We did discuss that briefly in the previous chapter. We will discuss that again as well. But because here, Krishna is all talking about thinking of me, remember me, and how do we engage ourselves in devotional service? So it's through the senses. If we engage all our senses in Krishna's service, then, and this is what we see on the slide as well now. But very well point, and you are right. And I'm glad those 9 forms of devotional service, 9 is not the option. Otherwise, I'm sure we would have said 9.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very, very well. So, okay. So as I say,
Prabhuji, it's a very good question which made us thinking about senses in connection with the bhakti. It's
that's
all
right.
very good question. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Mataji. The whole point is that we think about it. And that's why when you asked me, I didn't say the answer is 5. I said, like, let's try to understand it. And that's the whole point. We should.
You explained in quite an important way. There's a way to remember.
Yes, yeah. Because we need to think, and that's the main thing, that we think. Importance of remembering Krishna. How to think Krishna in a practical way. And if we do that, then and that's the whole point of we do the chanting. So we just get into the practice of chanting Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's why when we meet, we say Hare Krishna. So it will be, so when people sneeze, then people say different things. People say, God bless you. When I was in Middle East, people say different things. But if we are Krishna devotees, we say, oh, Krishna. Right? So we take the name of Krishna if something happens. If good happens, we say Hari Bol, which means thanks to Krishna. Oh, God is merciful. That God has made it happen. Not because of our ability, but God has given us. Hare Krishna. Well, it's 11 now. So, and we are done. So I'm going to end the poll now. And as always, I'm going to share the link where all the answers are there. And there are many more questions. I just picked few questions out of it, but there are many more questions on that link, which we can discuss. We can discuss in the group as well. But otherwise, remember, this is what we have discussed today, that we need to remember Krishna. If we remember Krishna, then at the time of leaving our body, if we able to remember Krishna, we will go back to Krishna. How do we live our life is important, because that's going to determine how we are going to leave the body. Right? And with that, I will say, Hare Krishna. Thank you for your association. I'm still here. If anybody got any questions or anybody would like to say anything. Otherwise, as I always promise, stay with the time. Start at 10 and finish at 11. Tomorrow, there is a seminar, an hour from the author of a book, Go Back to Godhead. And he has written the book in very nice way. So feel free. It's a different link, but I will share that Zoom link in the WhatsApp group. It's the author of the book is going to discuss about how he thought about the book and what he has written. And the book is written in very conversational form. So feel free tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. If you like to join, I will share the details in the group. So Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. I will look forward to see you next week, 10 a.m. for the chapter 9, which says the most
confidential knowledge.
Hari Bol.
I just want.
Oops. Sorry, someone was saying, I just want to, and Navneet. Okay, well, somebody was saying something, but I think got disconnected. Not from me, I guess, because of my hands are away. Okay. Hari Bol. All right, so we are done here. Feel free to leave, and I'll look forward to see you next week, Saturday, UK time, 10 a.m. And we will do chapter 9, which is the most confidential knowledge in Bhakti Yoga. Krishna is going to discuss, and looking forward to discuss it further, because Krishna is going to say that out of all the ways, devotional way, Bhakti Yoga is best. We have heard it a number of times, but why Krishna is saying it, that's what we are going to discuss. Okay. All right. With that, I'll say Hare Krishna. Feel free. I'm still here. If anybody would like to say anything. Hare Bo. Hare Krishna.